I just finished playing Metal Gear 1 and 2 and then Metal Gear Solid. And there's a million different ways you can approach this. Obviously, it's like one of the most like impactful, influential games ever. But the thing that really struck me about Metal Gear 2 and Metal Gear Solid are how ahead of their time they feel, just in terms of like narrative and life to them. There's a lot of flaws in Metal Gear Solid, just gameplay wise. If you're playing on hard, which means no radar, most of the time the people you're avoiding on patrols are not even on the map. You can't even see them. So it's pretty punishing with how restrictive the camera angles are. But the boss fights are extremely fun, and there's almost nothing more enjoyable than like the narrative sequences of this game. It's so stirring. Even the codec calls, I love the color scheme. There's like a I don't know, like an obvious, he's a big movie guy. There's like obviously like a cinematic flair to all these. And Kojima does such a good job of towing that line between cheesy and cool in a way that's very funny. And there's like there's variance to this, but I think it's just such a good job. And I love the PlayStation 1 aesthetic of like the big blocky polygons. There's something epic about it, whether I'm playing Xenogears or whether I'm playing Final Fantasy Tactics or whether I'm playing Metal Gear Solid. There's just something about the simplicity of it. Metal Gear Rex looks extraordinary. When you're in its hangar before the robot is activated, it also looks extraordinarily great. And there's a million different ways to look at this because the game is so influential. Like I've been trying to think of games that have aged better than Metal Gear Solid from the PS1 era, and it's hard to figure out many of them. Um, but if I do want to take one take on why Metal Gear 2, particularly, and Metal Gear Solid are so good to me, is I really do think this is a generous interpretation, but I really do think it took someone who was such a huge movie guy to make games that felt so much more heartfelt narratively than other games did of that era, where largely story was an afterthought. You could argue this is largely different by the PlayStation 1 and SNES era, but to me, these games feel so ahead of their time because while the gameplay is pretty great, especially in Metal Gear 2, I think that is a really good gameplay wise. Um, there's just so much heart in this and so much like acceptance of the form of being almost cinematic by that point because we're first starting to get voice acting in Metal Gear Solid. There's just so much to this which has true heart and vibrancy to it in a way that you're not really seeing in a lot of other games at that point. And I think that is the lasting legacy of this game. And if you look into the ending of Metal Gear Solid, I don't even know if he knew he was going to make more of them. Like this was almost the ending of a trilogy, and you hear about how they got dragged back to do it again and again. But there's like a real to this game that I really appreciate.